After World War I, America was feeling a little fragile. The world had just finished a global bar fight, and now a brand new, terrifying idea was leaking out of Russia: communism. Suddenly, every labor strike wasn't just about wages, it was a Bolshevik plot. The Seattle General Strike of 1919 involved 65,000 workers, and the mayor declared it an attempt to establish Soviet rule. In Seattle. Naturally, the federal government needed a hero to protect the nation from disgruntled dock workers and their revolutionary pamphlets. Enter Attorney General A. Mitchell Palmer, a man who saw a communist behind every corner, under every bed, and probably in his soup. He had a plan, and it was a masterwork of subtlety and respect for civil liberties. Just kidding. Palmer's solution was the Palmer Raids, a series of nationwide operations that were less about investigation and more about kicking down doors. Starting in late 1919, his agents, including a very ambitious young man named J. Edgar Hoover, rounded up thousands of suspected radicals. They arrested people in 30 cities, often without warrants, holding them in horrifying conditions. The goal was mass deportation. After all that sound and fury, they found a grand total of 3 pistols. 3! They had geared up for a revolution and found less firepower than you'd find at a Texas barbecue. Hundreds were still deported, primarily based on their political beliefs, proving that evidence is merely a suggestion when you're scared enough. The first Red Scare eventually burned itself out. Turns out you can only shout about the imminent end of the world for so long before people get bored and want to go invent jazz or something. Then the Great Depression hit, and suddenly capitalism didn't look so invincible. Questioning the system became a bit more mainstream when the system had visibly collapsed. For a while, things were quiet. We even found ourselves on the same side as the Soviet Union in World War II, which must have made for some awkward office parties. This alliance of convenience lulled everyone into a false sense of, well, not security, but maybe begrudging tolerance. It was a nice little nap before the national hysteria woke up again, crankier than ever. After WW2, the world split in two. The Soviets weren't our quirky allies anymore. They were the evil empire with nuclear ambitions. Winston Churchill gave his Iron Curtain speech, drawing a literal line across Europe. The loss of China to Mao Zedong's communists in 1949 felt like a personal failure to many Americans. And there actually were spies. People like Klaus Fuchs and the Rosenbergs passed atomic secrets, giving the paranoia a terrifyingly real foundation. This wasn't just about pamphlets anymore. This was about the bomb. So, naturally, the government's response was measured and rational. Wait, no, the opposite of that. They decided to hunt for spies by checking everyone's library card. President Truman, trying to get ahead of the Republican-led panic, signed Executive Order 9835 in 1947. This created the Federal Employees Loyalty Program. Its job was to find and fire any government worker who had sympathetic association with groups deemed subversive. What does that mean? Nobody knew. The criteria were fantastically vague. Did you own a Paul Robeson record? Did you once attend a meeting for Spanish Civil War relief? Did you have a friend whose cousin once read a page of Marx? Millions of federal workers were investigated. You had to prove you weren't a communist, a logical impossibility akin to proving you've never had a weird thought about a pigeon. The burden of proof was on the accused, a complete reversal of American legal tradition. The real theater, however, was in Congress. The House Un-American Activities Committee, or WAC, decided the biggest threat to America was screenwriters. They hauled Hollywood's elite to Washington to answer the question, "Are you now or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party?" 10 of them, the Hollywood 10, refused to answer on First Amendment grounds. It was a spectacular show. We had movie stars naming names of former friends to save their own careers. The result was the infamous Hollywood blacklist, an unofficial but very real list of people who were suddenly unemployable. For years, talented writers, directors, and actors were barred from working, all because a committee of congressmen were terrified of subliminal communist messages in Humphrey Bogart movies. And then came the man who turned a national anxiety into a personal brand, Senator Joseph McCarthy of Wisconsin. He wasn't the originator of the Red Scare, but he was its celebrity frontman. In February 1950, in Wheeling, West Virginia, he gave a speech where he held up a piece of paper and claimed, "I have here in my hand a list of 205, a list of names that were made known to the Secretary of State as being members of the Communist Party." That number, by the way, changed almost every time he mentioned it. Sometimes it was 205, sometimes 57, sometimes a lot. The actual list was never produced in a verifiable way. It didn't matter. The accusation was the point. McCarthy mastered the art of the headline-grabbing lie, bullying anyone who questioned him and ruining reputations with a single baseless sentence. Like all good villains, McCarthy's downfall was his own hubris. He decided to take on the United States Army. He accused them of being soft on communism, launching a series of televised hearings in 1954. For the first time, the entire country could watch his tactics live. They saw the bullying, the constant interruptions, the sneering contempt. The magic was gone. The pivotal moment came when the Army's chief counsel, Joseph Welch, got fed up with McCarthy smearing one of his young associates. Welch looked at him and delivered the fatal blow. "Have you no sense of decency, sir, at long last? Have you left no sense of decency?" The gallery burst into applause. It was over. The spell was broken. You could practically hear the air go out of the balloon. McCarthy was censured by the Senate and faded into obscurity, but the damage was done. Thousands of people lost their jobs. Hundreds were jailed. Lives were irrevocably shattered, not by a communist conspiracy, but by the fear of one. The term McCarthyism entered the dictionary as a synonym for demagoguery and witch hunts. It created a culture of conformity, a chilling effect, where people became afraid to express dissenting or unconventional ideas lest they be branded as subversive. It turns out the greatest threat to American values wasn't a shadowy cabal of communists, but a very public, very loud group of Americans armed with suspicion and podiums. A classic case of the cure being infinitely worse than the disease. The Red Scare is a fantastic, if terrifying, case study in how fear can be weaponized. It's a recurring pattern in history. Identify a scary other, convince people they are on the verge of destroying everything you love, and then offer a simple, brutal solution. It works with communists, it works with witches, it works with pretty much any group you can point a finger at. The details change, the blacklists become social media cancellations, the HUAC hearings become cable news segments, but the basic machinery of moral panic is timeless. We love to think we're smarter now, that we'd never fall for something so obvious. And that's usually the exact moment we start lining up to fall for it all over again. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more historical insights. Thanks for watching, nerds!